Hello Floss Tube, welcome to Snickerdoodle Stitch. My name is Kathleen and this is a channel about cross stitch. So today's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to show some items that I can't live without at this point related to cross stitch and a little bit related to quilting. And then I'm going to give a tutorial on how to make a thread catcher, which is also something I can't live without. So first up is my Canon IV photo printer. So this connects via Bluetooth, so if I take a picture with my camera, I can send it to this little tiny printer and it prints out a 2x3 sticker. So not terribly practical for a lot of uses. I got this 2 years ago and it looks like the price has gone up considerably. I think the price was actually about the same 2 years ago, but these little photo printers were one of the hot Black Friday items, so they were half the price. It looks like they're running around $100 now. 2 years ago they were $50. This is the Canon IV. There's also the HP Sprocket. It's a very similar, it's the same kind of Bluetooth. It uses the same printer paper and everything, or photo paper. Kodak makes one, and it looks like it's the least expensive now. They are all very similar. None of them are gonna make photos that you're gonna wanna frame and have up for life. So for what you would use them for, I would say get whichever one is cheapest. The way I use them, this is a book that I made years ago, well, a few years ago. I do a printout of every project once it's FFO'd. So not when it's finished stitching, but once I have it fully finished. I take a photo, I print it out, and then I put it in my book along with the date that I finished it and the designer. And it's an easy way for me to look back. There's also the count, so you can see this was the first finish of that year, the second. And so in 2024, I finished 35 things, and they're all just in the little book here. Some of them, there might be multiple things in a photo, but it's just how I keep track of my finishes, and I've got the same going for 2025. I'm a little short of my 35 that I had last year. I think at this point I've only got 28 or 29 finishes, but I've got some bigger things this year. So that's one way that I use the printer. The other way that I use it, and this was a tip that Sheila from Sunshine Stitchers mentioned, I like the clear plastic front project bags, but a lot of people, especially in the warmer climates, don't. And so if you have this kind of bag where it's not clear, it's hard to remember sometimes what's in there. This one I always know what's in here, and this bag, I'll just point out, it's from Creative Country Girl, which is TammyBlaylock.com, and she uses really cute fabrics and stuff. But this bag came with a tag, like a luggage tag, and I've just got a sticker printed from the little photo printer on the tag on the bag so that I know what's in here. And I remember Sheila saying she had the sprocket, I think, and that she printed everything. She's probably taken a photo of the pattern because it's before it's finished. That's actually what this is. It's a photo of the pattern now that I think about it. And that way you know what's in each of your project bags. So Christmas gift idea, on the pricier side. I will say I don't use the brand name sticker paper. You can get generic on Amazon, and I have found that the quality is just as good with it. And so that's what I typically use. I'm gonna switch gears now and do some smaller items. Actually, I don't need all of this on there. So Edmar needles, my absolute favorite needles. These needles feel smoother in my hand. They feel smoother going through the fabric. They just glide. I just absolutely love these needles. They're by far my favorite. I've been using the ponies some, but especially if I'm gonna use the smaller, like size 28, the ponies are very short. For anyone that likes petite needles, the pony size 28s are short. They're petites. The 26s are not. with the Edmards, I find that the 26s and 28s are about the same length, so either works. All right. You've all seen these little scissors. You can buy them at the cross stitch shop, the quilt shops. If you buy one pair there, they're, I don't know, like $3 maybe, $4, I don't know. You can buy them in a pack of 18 on Amazon, a little under $1 a pair. And I have these all over the place. I have a pair in each of my, what I consider my travel projects. So Mill Hill kits, my Carolyn Manning, a couple other things that I really only work on when I travel. I just keep one of these in the project bag. That way I don't get on the plane like I did a few years ago, only discover I had no scissors. And if I wanted to keep stitching, I had to scissor through the thread with my teeth, which my dentist would be horrified. But these scissors are amazingly sharp. They're so tiny that, you know, no TSA agent's gonna get a bug about these or think they're in any way dangerous. So love these little scissors. When I'm home next to my stitchy spot, I still love my Gingers. These are about 35 years old, maybe a couple years more than that. Still work as beautifully as they always did. They have a little leather sheath that goes on the end too, but because these are by my stitchy spot, that's never on there. What I love about these, I bought these back when I did a lot more hardanger and drawn thread embroidery, and these are pointy enough and sharp enough that I can snip a single thread in like 32 count linen without cutting anything that I don't want to cut. Still just love these scissors. Highly recommend having a good quality pair of scissors for your everyday use, especially if you're going to do something like hardanger or drawn thread embroidery. Other small gadgets that I love, I showed this. This is fairly new to me, but it is Clover Soft Touch Thread Pick. And it's going to be hard to see, but that end is, remember the embroidery hooks that people would use to crochet, like, or embroidery hooks. How about crochet hooks? The crochet hooks that people would use to crochet like lace doilies and things like that. This is smaller than the smallest one of those. It's the tiniest little hook, but it will actually grab a single thread in a piece of linen. It's really simple, and I often pull threads in linen, and when I do it is when I'm completely done, well, or before I even start. If I have a piece of linen that I don't think has been cut straight, it hasn't been cut on grain, and I don't have a lot of wiggle room on the fabric, I will pull a thread just so that I can see what is actually a straight edge. I mean, I can see that it's cut here, but the grain is actually gone like this. And so I'll pull a thread so that I can really see where I'm starting on my fabric, and am I gonna stay on my fabric. And then when I'm done, especially if it's a piece that has a stitched frame, like there's a definite line that I need to have squared up when I go to frame it, I will pull a thread on all four sides so that I can get it perfectly centered when I go to stretch it. So I pull a lot of threads. There's a few threads pulled on almost everything that I stitch. And I normally would just use a counting pin, which somebody gave me at a retreat. That's one of my favorites for pulling threads. But now I have started using this and really enjoying it. It's less than $10. It's anywhere that sells sewing supplies. I suspect you can get it. It's made by Clover. You could get it on Amazon, I'm sure. My next thing that I love is not even a stitchy supply. It is a chopstick. And what I love the chopstick for is turning items. So if I finished a small pillow and I'm turning it right side out and you want to poke those corners out so they're nice and pointy, I love the chopstick. So You can get a pack of 10 or 12 chopsticks for, I don't know, $6 or $7. I bought these years ago at Christmas tree shops for $2, but since we don't have Christmas tree shops anymore, I'm not sure. I don't know if like Five Below or somewhere may have them certain times of the year at least. But it's just the right pointiness to turn an item and poke those corners out. I have a gadget that was sold for quilters for something similar. I don't like this thing. It's called That Purple Thing. It's not pointy enough to me to use as a stiletto. It's also got this curve happening. It's too pointy to poke corners out. This will poke right through cotton fabric. So I need to just throw this thing away because I never use it. Much prefer my chopstick. All right, keeping with the small things, but moving on to some that cost a little bit more. This is a bead tray. It comes with the magnet in here, this big magnet, and then this is sticky. So you dump your beads in here, and your beads they stay in place. You don't lose them. If you drop this, they still stay stuck to this. What I like about this one is that it's small. I have another one that's in like a CD case, but the smaller one, if you'd hear a magnet on the back, and I've got a second magnet, and these are industrial magnets from something, I got them from my dad. You can attach this to your stitching fabric like you would a needle minder, and then you can have this right near where you're putting your beads on, so you're not having to reach off to the side or anything. They're right there where you need them for your beading. The magnet trick was one that Ronnie from Garon Stitchery did and shared on their floss tube, and I love that idea. So this has become invaluable for me when I'm doing any kind of heavy beading. And those you could find anywhere. Any cross stitch supply place is going to have those. So the next thing are the magnet clips. These are magnifiers that you can attach to your glasses. So I already wear bifocals. I've worn bifocals since I was in my 30s. But they will clip right on. And what I love about these is they just cover the bottom. So I wear these even stitching here at home. I did use my magnifier with my daylight lamp, but I have not been using that. I've been just using these. I actually moved my daylight lamp. I got a different lamp for the family room, and now I've got a light that is basically, it arcs out so that it's right over my head when I'm stitching. And so I was able to get the craft lamp out of the family room and out of the way. What I like about these, since they are just on the bottom, similar to like what a bifocal would do, but they're just adding additional magnification on for me, I can watch TV, and this is the part I'm watching the TV through. If you need to, these things will also flip up so that they're out of your way. I don't often do that. I've usually either flipped them down, or they're really easy. You get used to just popping them off while your glasses are still on your face. These are a little bit pricey. They run about, I think, $18 to $20. So I use 2.5s. That's what I need on top of the magnification that's in my bifocals. They come, I think, from 1.0 to 5.0. Stronger is not better. I had the bright idea that I was going to get like some 3.5s and really give my eyes a rest. Well, the problem is that as you add more magnification, the focus point keeps moving closer to your face. So with the 3.5s, I was going to need to stitch about 10 inches from my face, which is way too close. It's just not practical. You've got your arms held way up. Nothing's ergonomic at that point. So to know what magnification you want, I would recommend, since these are a little pricier, you know, if you bought them out of LNS, you could try them out potentially. Or if you're at a retreat and someone's using them, you could try theirs out to see if that magnification might work for you. The other thing you could do is just pop some readers on, you know, like the drugstore readers over top of your glasses. I have seen people stitch that way. You know, that's another option. You can buy a $2 pair of readers at Five Below or Dollar Tree or somewhere and wear them at the same time as your glasses. But it would at least give you a way to try out different magnifications to see what on top of your glasses would work for you. But I love these. I couldn't live without them. I did go to a retreat one time without my travel lamp, which has a magnifier on it. And so I had no way to magnify what I was stitching. And I think I had taken something with a higher count than I would normally take to a retreat, probably like a 36 count. I wouldn't have taken a 40 count. And I had Amazon ship a pair of these to the hotel. I had them first thing the next morning. So that's the nice thing with these. They are easy to get hold of. This next thing is not a stitchy item. It's actually a scrapbook. Well, it's actually a card making item. It is from a company called Art Glitter, and it is their clear adhesive. And yeah, this bottle is very old. This is probably 30 years old here. It's been refilled many times. I buy this by the quart. So this is glue. It's clear, it's archival, it doesn't get hard or stiff. It doesn't discolor anything, like when it dries, it doesn't leave a dark spot. It's a thin glue, but it dries fairly quickly. So if you're gluing something with it, you don't have to sit there holding it in place for 20 minutes. It's more like 20 seconds. This size bottle is about $5. You can buy it anywhere online that you can buy scrapbook supplies. One thing to note about this, they can't ship it if you're in an area where temperatures are reaching freezing. This can't freeze or get that cold. And so they're careful at where they will ship it in the winter. And some shops don't ship because they're somewhere cold. So they don't want it freezing in transit. It doesn't thaw properly. What I like to use this for my cross stitch is finishing. So no one's seen this yet, but I finished this. It's a Satsuma Street kit. I don't remember the name. I used it to glue the felt on the back before I cut this out. And you can see nothing has leaked through. I don't have any funny dark spots. We've probably all pulled Christmas ornaments out this time of year. You know, things the kids had made. And you can see like the funny dark spots where glue was, or they get stiff. They're no longer flexible. This stays flexible. So, and putting the glue on the back, I just put the glue on my cross stitch, actually, on the perforated paper back, and then put my felt down, and I just weighted it down with a book and left the book on top for like a minute, and then it was fixed enough that I could have pulled it loose if I needed to, but it was fixed enough that I could go ahead and start my cutting out. So there's not like a long waiting time for drying or anything. My other cheaters thing, I actually use this glue to glue on Chanel when I use Chanel on small pillows. It's still soft and flexible. It's not pulling loose. 20 years from now, it's not going to be falling off like some glue would. It's a highly recommend for me, for anyone that does your own finishing. So Art Institute, you do want the clear. They have a white one as well, but you would want the one that's clear. I buy it in like a quart bottle and refill this thing. I do a lot of mixed media and paper arts as well. And so I go through a lot of this glue in a year. All right, this one's gonna seem like a funny one, but jumbo D-rings. So you can buy these on Amazon as well, or they sell them in scrapbook stuff to put washi tape on. So washi tape is like this paper tape. For any of my quilters, I love washi tape to mark a quilting ruler before I'm cutting fabric out. I can put a strip of this on, like, so that I'm easily finding my line and I'm not having to keep looking for it. This will peel on and peel off. And if you look after a holiday, any holiday, in the paper crafting section of the craft stores, this will often be on clearance and you can buy it super cheap. And it's a great way to mark your rulers or to put a piece of tape down on your sewing machine bed for your 1/4 inch or any size seam that you want, because it doesn't leave a residue. It peels off, but it stays down when you want it down and then peels off easily. And it's super cheap, and it comes in all kinds of different colors and patterns. This one is supposed to look like a road. But what I like the D-rings for is it is how I store everything except my DMCs. So this D-ring is all Weeks Dye Works. I put them on here in alphabetical order by the name. And so when I need a floss, you know, I'm kitting something up or working on a project, I can look and see, do I have the floss that it's calling for? I can also just really see everything well. So I'm like, okay, I don't have the green that's called for, but it's kind of an olivey green. So well, that doesn't look green on camera. There's another one peeking through. I can't find it now. You know, you can look and see, do I have something else in here that's gonna work? Or do I need to go by the floss that it's saying it wants? So I love the D-rings for that. They unscrew and pop open. I can flip these around. So if I needed, what is that? If I needed begonia, I just flip these around and now I can unscrew this and this will pop right off. So a little fiddly to flip them around to get to the one I want so that it's where I can unscrew this and get it off. But for all the more often you kit something, I can deal with that. And it just makes the storage super compact. I just have one of these hanging on a hook in the back of a closet. Well, I have more than one of these, but I just hang these D-rings on the hook in the back of the closet. And then I just pull the D-rings out whenever I'm working on something that I need overdyes for. All right, my next thing. I laugh, one of my viewers, when I mentioned last video that I was going to probably do this next, one of my viewers mentioned that Helen D had done a video of products that she gets questions about. And so I did watch her video because I thought, well, if I'm showing the same thing, that's kind of stupid. I'm not going to do that. I'll just do my video tutorial on how to make the thread catcher. But we only had a couple things that were the same. And I'm going to show one of them now. But I'm actually showing these for a different reason. So things to keep your thread out of the way, or your fabric out of the way. These little spool grabbies, they're made for going around spools of thread. I don't use them on my spools of thread for a couple reasons. One, most spools have a little groove or a little notch where you can hook your thread so that it doesn't keep unraveling all over the place. And if I put these on, my spools don't fit in the storage that I keep my sewing thread in. But I do love these to go around fabric on a Q-snap, or for anyone that stitches in hand, you can even use these just to hold some fabric that's bunched up out of the way. So they're great for that. I looked at these in an L&S this last weekend, and it was $4 for 3 of them. But the way I prefer to buy them is on Amazon, a bag of 100. When I bought these, they were $15. It looks like they're now running around $17 or $18. But still, for 100 spools, that's making them less than 20 cents each. And they make great little things to add into table gifts at retreats. So that's where I've used a lot of them. I also just have them all over the place. I got a handful of them next to my stitchy seat in a drawer, and some are just in project bags. They're kind of everywhere. There's a handful in a tote bag. That's what I often take my travel. If I'm going anywhere to stitch, there's one tote bag I often grab. And so there's a handful of them in there. But super cheap. You know, maybe if a couple friends want to go together, you could buy a bag of 100 for what, you know, a dozen are going to cost in a stitchy store. I also love the cable minders. If I've got more fabric than would clump up under the little spool holder, I like these ones. I bought these on Amazon. I like them because they are just the right length. They're not too long. I've seen some people where these are so long that the magnet part they then got halfway across their stitching. If they are too long, you can see I've tied knots in some of these, and it's because whatever I was using them on last time, I needed them to be a little shorter. I use these to keep fabric out of the way when I'm working on a Q-snap, especially if I'm working on a full quarter yard or half yard, although I don't work on a half yard very often. I also like these. They are long enough that I can use them when I'm working on a scroll frame and I want to get some tension on the sides of the fabric. So the part that isn't attached to the roller, I can come in from the side around the end pieces and grab my fabric to pull it taut. So I like these. Now, I mentioned that I don't use the spool savers for spools, but here's a trick I'm going to give everybody who sews for bobbins. So you can see this is a bobbin case. Most of the bobbins in here are empty, and you can see I've got one on here. These are little elastics for little girls' hair. And they're super cheap. It's less than $5 for, I think this is a bag of 50. And it's what I use on my bobbins to keep the thread in place on those. The spool holders that I showed are too big to go around a bobbin. They're made for spools. But these little tiny elastics fit perfectly around a bobbin. They're soft enough and thin enough that I can still put my bobbins in whatever bobbin storage, this kind or the kind where it's more like a tray and the bobbin pops in. What I like about these is that I grab whichever color I've got. I grab a hair tie that will match whatever thread I've got in the bobbin. So this bobbin's got blue thread on it. The mixed package comes with white and black, greens, red, pink, purple. It doesn't have gray, and I use a lot of gray thread. I don't use much purple thread. So for me, in my storage, if I see a bobbin with purple on it, then I know that's a gray thread in there. But these are super cheap. You just need the tiny ones. So, they made these for adult, for a lot of hair too. You want the tiny ones like you would use on a toddler with little baby fine hair. And I will link to this stuff below if I can. I'm not an affiliate. I don't, for some reason, YouTube, if I put links, starts to put on top of my video that I'm sponsored. I'm not sponsored. I'm too small of a channel. They should know that. But I will try and put links for some of these things in below, or all of these things. All right. This is the other thing that Helen D showed that I honestly can't live without. It is the DMC floss sample book. So it's got all of the flosses, and it folds multiple times. It's quite the thing here. It's organized by color, and these are the actual thread samples. So it's not a photo. I had one many years ago that was just a photo. These are actual thread samples. And then the other thing that's nice, there is a page in here which just lists all the threads in numeric order. So if I'm looking and I can't find, 524, this tells me that it's in row 12. And then I can just go to row 12. Whoops. I can go to row 12, and I know 524 is now in here. Of course, now I can't find it. Here it is. I was going to say it's grayish green. I know what that color is. How do I use this? So a couple ways. I will use it sometimes if I go to grab a color, let's say 3819 is what's called for in the pattern. I go to my storage and I don't have 3819 in there, and it's something where there's only a dozen stitches, and I'm not going to go through 60 project bags looking for where did I put 3819. I pull this out and I look and I go, oh, 165 is pretty darn close for those dozen stitches, and I'll grab the 165 and move on with my day. The other way I use this, over dyes can change color over time. So if I had a Weeks Dye Works begonia from my D-stash that I bought several years ago, and they were already old then, that begonia may not look like what begonia looks like today. So the dyers are at the mercy of the companies that make the dye, and sometimes they discontinue or change the dye, and now the dyer is stuck trying to get as close as they can or discontinuing it. I just saw that Atomic Ranch is discontinuing, I think it's Palomino. It's a light neutral, so I'm sure they're not happy about it, but their message on their website says that they can't get hold of that dye anymore. And so until or if they can come up with another formula, that fabric is discontinued. So anyway, the floss dyers are at the mercy of the companies that make the actual dye. So I may have a pattern and it's calling for some color, and I have that in stash, but when I look at it, I'm thinking this looks nothing like the picture does. But the pattern designer will often give a DMC alternate, and I can come to this and look and see, what's the DMC look like? Does that look like what I have in my hand? So that I can tell, is the problem that the dye has changed for that over dyed floss, or is the problem that the photo has bad color? Because it can be one or both. And so by being able to come and compare to this, then I can get a good idea for, what the issue is, and do I want to use the dye that I have in, or the floss that I have in hand, or do I want to order a new skein, or look wait until I can get to an LNS and look and see what the heck does it look like in person now. So that is a couple of the ways that I use this. A couple pricier things. So my Halo Go, I can't live without. And I was seeing everybody take their Halo Goes in these keyboard carrying bags. A lot of people have it in a really pretty pink and purple. I decided to get it in the black because I was being gifted stickers at a lot of retreats or I was buying them when I was traveling, like at the Grand Canyon. And so I got black, and I will tell you the stickers won't stay stuck on here by themselves because this is like fabric, and so there's a couple dots of that art glitter underneath the stickers before I put them down so that they would stay glued down. But this pack, this just unzips, and again, it's a keyboard holder. And my Halo Go fits in here. It's a nice cushion, velvety lined case, and then the other side has zipper pouch. So my charger and sometimes my battery pack, one of them, is stuck in here. A couple options for recharging your travel light, whatever travel light you have, because there's many. Some people like the kinds that hook around their neck. There's different brands. You know, there's a lot on Amazon. There's a lot of travel light options, but very few are going to hold a charge that is going to get you through a retreat that starts at 8 in the morning and ends at midnight. So there's a lot of different charger options. I had this one first. This one was less than $20. It's a solar, recharges itself with solar light. You can also recharge it with the power cable, but the charge that the Halo light would hold and this will get me through about 10 hours. So again, not an 8 a.m. to midnight. Not too often. I'm stitching more hours than that anyway. Even if I'm there from 8 in the morning until midnight, I've usually spent some time with lunch and wandering and talking and doing all the things. And so this would generally do me. I don't remember what I was doing, that I was pretty sure I was not going to have access to electric the way I wanted. And so I did buy a Halo Bolt. Not to be confused with the Halo Go. That Halo Go is made by the Daylight Company. I don't know who makes Halo Bolt. This holds enough charge that it's actually designed to jumpstart a car, which was how I justified buying this, was, oh, I could jumpstart my car with it, because I have to do that so often. And you can see I've got stickers stuck all over this too. So many people give out stickers, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. Let me put it on something. So there is a pretty significant difference in size and weight of these. I have flown with this one. I haven't flown with the Halo Bolt. I would want to look at the... I would need to check FAA.gov and see if you can fly with this. You can't have either in your checked bag. They want to be able, anything with this kind of battery, they want in the cabin in case it catches on fire. They would know that something is on fire. Whereas if it's down in the cargo hold, nobody would know until it was, dangerous. But there are restrictions in the size of batteries that you can even take in your carry-on. And I'm not 100% sure. I know I've seen people that have flown with us, that have been at retreats that I know flew there, and they had one of these with them. But I'm not sure technically if this is allowed. This is pricey. This is like $100, I think. So I wouldn't want to get to the airport and have TSA say they've got to confiscate it. You can't fly with that. This was like $18, so I wouldn't be happy about it, but this I know is small enough that you can fly with it. This one I'm not as confident that it's truly allowed. My next kind of big thing is my Case Creation lap stand. One, it's just beautifully made. The wood is finished beautifully. I love that this joint, there's actually 4 pivot points. So you can have this in any position you want, as high or low, as far towards you. This is a nice counterbalance weight, so you can have it way out here with a hoop on it, and it's not falling over. I have used this in my lap, and I've used it on a table. So because this side moves in so many different directions, you can use it both ways. I actually use this at home more than I have used my Kay's Creation floor stand, which is very similar to the Lowry. I didn't think about it when I bought the floor stand, but either, really any floor stand, the bar is coming in from the side, and the arm on my sofa is about 2 inches higher than what I need my needlework to be. So it's up too high, and then I'm scrunching up my shoulders to stitch and get fatigued very quickly. So I've either got to rearrange the furniture so that I'm stitching in the recliner, which has a lower arm, or I'm just continuing to use my lap stand. All right, last thing I'm going to show, which I'm not even sure I can get on camera. Can I get them from the side? Well, sort of. It's these snap cases that I bought for my floss away packs. They are just the perfect size. So it's 2 sets of 2, so it's 4 that I have. Let me back up the camera. You just might see more junk. But these will hold two rows of floss away bags. And then I've got 4 trays. It takes about 3.5 to hold the full set of DMC. There's a handful of colors that I probably don't have, but there's some that I have more than one bag of. So I'm sure I've got as many bags as there would be DMC colors. And some of these bags have more than one floss in there. Especially some of them have the old and the new, because the colors aren't quite the same. I did put I cut a piece of, this is like a thin plastic that I've got in there just to keep the bags separated, but I've been really happy with this. It's a nice way to have it very portable. I don't have this sitting next to my stitchy spot, but I could. And I do, if I'm working on something like a quick stitch item, I will, instead of kitting it up, I'll grab that and just have it next to my chair to pull out the flosses as I need them. All right. Last thing I wanted to do was give a tutorial. This is an item that I can't live without. It's my little thread catcher. This has been next to my stitchy spot in my family room since I got back to stitching. I had made this to use at quilt retreats and didn't really use it there. Partly because I don't just have thread scraps there, I tend to have fabric scraps. So most quilt retreat spots have little trash cans for each station, but so I couldn't live without this. It's the perfect size to catch all those little threads, if I finished a skein of floss, the paper tags, little candy bar wrappers are often in here. I have to empty it about every other day, but it's next to my stitchy spot all the time. I have also given them away at retreats for table gifts. This one's been stored a little scrunched up, so it's not wanting to pop open square. This is the same thing. This one I've got these points on the inside, and on this one I put them on the outside just for something a little different. This one I did, and I only folded down the one side, and I left these other three, so they're sort of up like petal points. It's cute that way. It wouldn't travel as well as they do when they're all folded down like this. But I'm going to show you how to make these. They're super easy, and I've got a couple started here so we can go through this pretty quickly. But you need, let me do a slight adjustment. Okay. You need 2 pieces of 10-inch square fabric, ideally in coordinating fabric, because it's gonna fold down over the side, and you kind of want to see that. So two pieces of fabric, 10-inch square. These are leftovers from a layer cake that I had used for something. And then a piece of batting that's 9.5-inch square. Great way to use up batting scraps. So you're gonna put your 2 pieces of fabric right sides together, and then put your batting on top. Next thing you're gonna do, and voila, I have one done. You're gonna sew around the edge 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric, not the batting. We cut the batting a little bit smaller. That's just so these seams would have less bulk in them. So you want 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric, and you want to start. You're gonna start and you're gonna stitch around. But what you want to leave is a piece that's not stitched down, that's kind of in the middle of one side like this. You don't want it down here at a corner you don't want this to be unstitched, and I'll show you why in a minute. You want some stitched on both sides, and then this chunk that's unstitched. So I went all the way around, except for this about, I don't know, 5 inches. It's whatever your hand will fit through. Because the next thing we're gonna do is reach in between the 2 fabrics, and we're gonna turn this right side out. And what did I do with my chopstick? I'm gonna use the chopstick to, what is wrong there? Oh, I'm not in the corner, that's what's wrong. Operator error. We're just gonna poke these out. And I'm not gonna fiddle with this as much as I might if I were truly gonna stitch this, but I've got the magic of having multiples of these in different stages here, so I could quickly walk through how to do this with you all. But sorry, you gotta watch me poke this out, because I'm going to show you why we stitched that way. So remember, I had gone all the way around except for a section that was kind of smack in the middle. And the reason I like it to be smack in the middle is I can sort of tuck those in, and then just by tugging on the sides that were stitched, now I've got I'm not fiddling with folding that under and trying to get that exact. It will sort of snap to. And then the next thing we're gonna do is stitch all the way around, just about 1/8 of an inch. You want it, you need it to be able to catch this 1/4 inch that's folded under. So you don't want it to be 1/4 inch, or you may end up with a spot that doesn't completely catch all that. So just like 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Then you can quilt this. You don't have to. On mine, you can see maybe I have some quilting. And what I have done on these when I quilted them, well, that one's got one of my tags on the bottom. like you can see this, the bottom isn't really even quilted here. Let me see, this one you can't see because it's white on white. What I will usually do to quilt these, just to keep it simple, is I'll take the width of my walking foot and I will quilt a square, just a width of the walking foot from the edge of the fabric. You could draw a design to quilt on. I mean, you could quilt it anyway. I'm just telling you what I usually do. I do a square, and then from that stitched line, I do another walking foot width in and stitch. And I'm pretty sure on this one, I did one more row. So I did another width in on a small square, and that was it. But you don't have to quilt it. But you do need to stitch down the edge. That just will make it it will just make the edges neater, and you've got to stitch down that part that we didn't stitch, because so we could get our hand in there to turn it out. Once you have that stitched down, you're going to take your square and fold it in half. Okay, ignore that edge. That would be stitched. You're going to take your square and fold it in half, and then on your folded side or corner, you're going to measure 2 inches up this way and 2 inches this way, and you're going to stitch right across. And you're going to do the same thing on this side. 2 inches and 2 inches. You can mark them with a pen, like a friction pen. I had it here a minute ago and it was in my way, and I don't know what I did with it. I had a hair marker that just kind of scores the fabric. My fingernail sort of works. That purple thing would probably work for that. That thing that I said I was going to throw away. Anyway, however you prefer to mark it, just it's going to show. So you want it to be something that's going to disappear. You can mark it with the chalk, whatever you want, but it's not. It is going to show. It's going to show on the inside. There, that one, it looks like I actually marked with a pencil. So it shows, but I didn't even notice it anymore. So however you want to mark it, go ahead. So here is one that I have stitched already, my 2 inches. And you can see it's starting to come together. The next thing you want to do, you've got to fold it the other way, but it's not as neat this way, because now we've got things stitched up here. So I have folded this in half right here, and we're going to mark the 2 inches and 2 inches and sew that, and then we're going to do the same thing on this side. And once we do that, let me just hold it so it looks like it's stitched. Now you're starting to see the box come together. And then they would get folded to the inside. So see, there are those corners stitched down. But I've put them on the inside on this one, and then you're just folding each of the points down and tacking it down with a button. And when you did all 4 sides, you would have the little, I mean, this one I chose to leave up and not tack them down. That was just me trying something out with that one. I think I was getting bored because I was making a lot of them for retreats that year. This one I didn't put the points on the inside. I left them on the outside. And left the inside without these. I think I like them better on the inside, actually. I was thinking, so when I go to empty my trash out of this one, I'm often having to pick threads off from around these points. And so I had the thought that maybe they would be cleaner and easier if these points were on the outside. I don't know. If you make dozens of them for retreats, then you could end up like me and you're kind of bored of making the same thing over and over again. And so you start to experiment with it. But that's in a nutshell how to make them. So, super simple supplies. They go together in about, I don't know. Well, if you're using pre-cut squares like those that are left over from a layer cake, you got to cut the piece of batting and then it's really just the sewing. Probably takes longer to sew the 4 buttons on than it does to make the entire rest of the construction. I think I could, if I had my supplies all out and ready, I could do probably 4 or 5 of these in an hour. So they are super simple to make and another item that I can't live without. So I hope you all are having a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend, and I will talk to you all soon. Actually, December 12th is the next time I will be back, and then my episode after that will be right after Christmas, and it will be my whip parade. So stay tuned, everybody. Thanks for visiting with me. Bye.